Welcome to the Musicians Weekly, Volume 23. Today I want to present you one of the greatest geniuses of 20th century music, but almost totally unknown globally and even in his home country, France. Jean-Louis Florentz. Don't feel insecure or whatever if you never heard his name. He's never played, only by organists. So among organists, one should know him. He was a pupil of Messiaen, and so Messiaen is one of the great idols of 20th century organ music, of the icons. But Florentz is unknown also there. And the music is very different from Messiaen's music. Messiaen's music is full of beauty of sound, particularly in some early and the late works. And it is very static. And it is almost totally without counterpoint. So everything is working in paraphonia, in parallel movement of the voices. And with these kind of artificial, very interesting rhythms and with these modes, Messiaen has derived from the study of Eastern music, but has made them a kind of atonal system, and with his sense of colorization throughout. So my impression with Messiaen very often was that it is in the beginning extremely fascinating. When I first heard the Turangalila Symphony, I thought this is one of the greatest works mankind has ever produced. But then listening to it more and more, it became less interesting because there is not something really behind this phenomenal facade. So it showed to be a bit kind of holy emptiness or empty holiness. But of course, this sounds very provocative and everybody can keep it as you want. But you should know Jean-Louis Florentz. Jean-Louis Florentz is on the opposite, totally dynamic composer, full of life in all his veins, full-blooded musician. And he was born in 1947 and he died much too early in 2004. He was a strong smoker. He really didn't live a healthy life. And he was absolutely restlessly working, but not composing so much. There are only 18 opus numbers finally, one of them unfinished. But he was also an ethnographer, and he was a music ethnographer. He was an ornithologist, and he was a fantastic photographer. And for some of us, it is easier to follow optical impressions than acoustic impressions. And so I show you just some of these marvelous photographs that Florentz has done everywhere in the world. And he did a lot of field trips to Africa, particularly former French territories, but also to the French islands, which are still under French rule, and to Minor Asia and North Africa, Sahara, all these things, all these places he visited. And he loved it to do these photos and to take on tape the songs of birds. You have the birds here. These are some photos by Jean-Louis Florentz. And of course, a lot of landscape photographs as well. And here you see. So it's only a book. It's a very rare book now. It's quite expensive to get it somewhere, and it's almost impossible to get. I'm very happy that I bought it I don't know, at least 10 years ago. It was issued in 2007. And yeah, so you here see all these things. where he was. And his dream for his life was to go to Ethiopia, because he was particularly interested in the ancient Christian music and in the ancient Christian culture. But the problem was, since the fall of Haile Selassie and the takeover of a communist regime in Ethiopia, French people were not allowed to go into the country. And so it was impossible for him, because in Ethiopia, it was an enclave inside the Arab world, while Christianity stayed, at least to a large degree, in its original way. And so he looked for another solution to find the music of the ancient Christians. And finally, he found the Église orthodoxe égyptienne de Jérusalem. And he made a recording of 2 CDs with L'Assomption à Debre Ganat. And this was issued by Okora Radio France. It's also long out of print and very, very difficult to find, but it is absolutely fascinating. It is recorded in a round church. I show you a picture. Here you see it. That's the location of the recording, this circle of a church. And there were 2 possible solutions for the recording. Either one could try to get everything that is placed in this circle in the same kind of quality, and so you can hear everything everybody is doing in this church. Or you go to the perspective of, because there are no listeners, it's a service just of those who are also singing. So you can go to one corner and hear it as somebody hears it who is part of this service. And so he decided to do this latter thing. And so you hear this music, and it has nothing to do with what we think is a Christian tradition. It's so far away. I mean, there's, first of all, these nasal voices, it is not at all the way of singing we have today. A bit of it we have with these mountaineer choruses in southern Tyrol in Italy, but far away from that. And this music, of course, is very folkloristic. In Tyrol, we immediately understand the music, even if the voices are a bit like from ancient times. But here, the music is totally far away from our time. It has nothing to do with counterpoint or such things. It's also not the normal way of homophony, of monophony. It's a kind of heterophonic singing. And I would say that it sounds a bit like religious music from another planet. So it's impossible to, at least to immediately connect it with the tradition of religious music that came from Assyria, from Minor Asia, from the Levante to Europe, and which was the foundations of what we call Gregorian choral singing and all these things. So this is something Florenz did apart from composing. And in composing, of course, he noted down a lot of birds singing, but he didn't use it in this kind of quotations, and this was not so interesting for him. It inspired him generally, and also all the way of African singing inspired him. And when you hear his music and you can abstract a little bit from the concrete sound of the Western instruments that is there, you can immediately hear Black people singing in African indigenous music. These are the themes. But then we have something completely different, which are the forms. The forms are large arcs. We have here a bit, almost everything is unavailable now. Michel Boursier is playing Les Laudes and Debout sur le Soleil. These are 2 of his organ works. And then here, Henri-Franck Beauperrin is playing La Croix du Sud and L'Enfant Noir, which is only one movement, it's the unfinished work, and his own transcription of L'Anneau de Salomon, which I consider maybe the most phenomenal orchestral work by Florenz, but this is just my subjective impression. Here we have again Les Laudes with Boursier, and then we have Magnificat, which is quite early, Antiphone pour la Visitation, a wonderful work with chorus. There is another work which is Requiem pour la Vierge, or Assun is also the title, which is larger, which is later, which has not been recorded, which is one of the main works of Florenz. And some of these works have not been recorded until today. Here we have some excerpts. This has been done by the publisher, by Alphonse Leduc. Same publisher is Messiaen. And there we have also some of these cello works, because Florenz, he didn't care at all for practical things. So he never wrote a string quartet or a piece of piano music or chamber music with piano. Not a piano trio, nothing like that. He was not interested. So he wrote only for the orchestra, one piece for chorus a cappella, which has been recorded, I think, twice or three times, which is called Asmara, like the capital of the part of Ethiopia, which is not anymore Ethiopia, Eritrea. The whole coast today is not Ethiopian. So for the Ethiopians, it's a disaster, but now it's Eritrean. And so this Asmara, this heavenly village, heavenly city, this is the title of the choral work, which is very difficult to sing, but very effective and very beautiful. It's an a cappella choral work. And then it's choral music with orchestra, like the Magnificat and Assun. And then we have works for cello, that means for one cello, then for a little group of cellos, and for a larger group of cellos. And then we have some miniatures, one miniature for horn solo, one miniature for vocalise, which he didn't count as opus numbers. And then we have the organ music and we have the orchestral music. And the orchestral music, again, we have also a cello concerto. So he loved the cello. The organ was his instrument, which he played in the most phenomenal manner himself. But the cello was this real love. And so he wrote such a lot of things for cello and for cello. And his solo cello piece, L'Ange du Tamaris, has been also recorded several times. But the pieces for more than one cello, which are, the titles are Chant de Neanderia and Second Chant de Neanderia, are very beautiful pieces. They are like a bit like free improvisations in an oriental mood, but you cannot say that it is something that has never been written before. And so there are three orchestral CDs. This is the music, the CD, how I got to know his music. It was issued in it was at least produced in 1998. It's long out of print. And Emmanuel Krivine is conducting the Orchestre National de Lyon with Les Chardins d'Amantin after the Egyptian Book of the Dead. And Günter Herbig is conducting the same orchestra, soloist Ivan Schiflo with Le Songe de Luc Acari pour violoncelle et orchestre. And this is phenomenal music, absolutely unbelievable. Then we have here Debout sur le Soleil for organ again, Asmara for choir a cappella, and then Xargilan, a late work for small orchestra, here conducted by John Nelson. Not very well in the wave of style. It is more played like modernist music, which it is not. And then we have this most wonderful CD of L'Anneau de Salomon et L'Enfant d'Exil. And here the Orchestre National des Pays de la Loire is conducted by Hubert Soudan, and it was produced together. It was rehearsed, played in concert and produced together with the composer. And then on this CD, which is for me the real highlight of what is there, particularly L'Anneau de Salomon, a work from 1997-98, Danse symphonique pour grand orchestre, opus 14, in 12 parts, in one movement. It's a kind of kaleidoscope of form, which could remind one of Sufi stories, of Sufi fairy tales, which we go from little story to little story, but we have themes uniting it. In the beginning, in the middle, and the end, same things reappear, harmonies reappear. We have a kind of the most phenomenal fusion of definitely French orchestral style. So we have a lot of Debussy influence here, but also later things. And it is all put together into something new. And then we have these African rhythms, which are like a flying carpet in the music. And all these things are played here with such a natural lightness and rhythmical, eurythmical harmony, which is absolutely fantastic. And the music is not at all easy, not easy to play, absolutely not. And also not really so easy to correlate, that you really understand, because this L'Anneau de Salomon is a symphonic work that works as a whole. But of course, all these sections are incredibly impressive and very different. And a phenomenal use of percussion and phenomenal use of every instrument of the orchestra. Everything is totally natural. So I would consider it, if you listen to this piece, the peak of French orchestral music. And I know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Debussy and Ravel. I'm talking about their predecessors and their successors. And I can say this is the most phenomenal thing ever written for orchestra by a French composer, in the French style, but with a lot of African and minor Asian interferences. But the music is not at all with this kind of exotic cliches that were particularly popular in French music for a long time. It has nothing to do with that. It's a music with a great utopian vision. And he was one of the greatest composers of 20th century. He's unknown. Here you see him again, Jean-Louis Florentz. Absolutely recommended to everybody open to music that is timeless, timelessly modern, and incredibly beautiful and lively. See you again soon.